Hey, I'm Dr. Peace, and I'm your host for the Office Hours podcast. I'm glad you decided to stop by today. In this, my very first episode, I talked with Chris Miner. He's a former student of mine. Currently, he's working for the Public Defender's Office as a mitigation specialist, and he's a PhD candidate in criminology. And I'll tell you one thing Chris has, and that's a lot of lived experience. In this episode, we have a sometimes brutally honest conversation about the flaws in social work, higher education, the prison system. There's a lot of good stuff in there I think you'll enjoy. So go ahead, pull up a chair, get your favorite drink, and let's do this. Well, Chris, this is honestly the truth. I am so glad that you're here. I started dreaming of having a podcast a couple of years ago. Maybe even a little bit longer than that. But I really thought I just met so many interesting students over the course of 20 years. And people went on with their lives. I'm friends with them on Facebook. And so I see what they're doing. I keep in touch with people. And I thought, man, I know some really cool people that would be fun to interview on a podcast. You're the first one, though. I thought first guest I would want to have is Chris Miner. Because you just stood out the first day of class. I remember seeing you, and like you say, you describe yourself a returning student. I could tell that. You didn't speak up a lot, but when you did, you really said deep shit. And I was always like, oh yeah. You kind of reminded me of my son a little because he's a deep thinker. And I thought, I just really grew to respect you in that class. And I have appreciated you on Facebook and recently your Substack essays, and there's just nobody I'd rather start this off with than you. So welcome to Office Hours with Dr. Peace.
Hello.
I know exactly where to start. I was reading your essays this morning, and I believe the title is I Hate Social Work. What could be more fitting? I mean, honestly. A podcast about social work practice meets lived experience. Your article hits on everything that I think and don't have I'm just not a word. I'm a talker, but I'm not a writer. Your writing is just blows me away. So anyway, I'd like to start there. What do you hate about social work, Chris?
Quite a few things, actually. Well, first of all, you're going to be a little let down because I don't speak quite as well as I write, so I don't get to compose my thoughts. I might get some truly great bits, but anyway, with social work, I guess with the title, you should know there is some little work done. It's a capital S, capital W social work, the professionalization of social work. And I guess I'll tell my story. After getting an undergraduate degree at U of I went ahead and applied for a master's of social work, thinking that I was going to get into something quite a bit different from what I actually did. I thought it was going to be more social, more just basically more realistically looking at things through various lenses, but we didn't really use that much. Critical race theory, critical feminist theory, some of that stuff was brought up slightly. But lately I've been talking to some of the students again, where like this was never really brought up at all. And that's one of the biggest issues with social work is I think a lot of it assumes a level playing field, assumes that what'll work for a 51-year-old straight cis English speaking white dude like myself was going to work for somebody who doesn't have quite as much privilege as myself. Now, is that an oversimplification? Yeah, that's basically what I do when I'm writing or talking is oversimplify and generalize stuff because that's the best way to communicate outside of the expertise level to other people. Another big problem I have, and this is also with the level playing field that I think is just naturally integrated into social work as we see it, the whole bootstrappy thing. But it's cognitive behavioral therapy. Again, people attack me when I get on this because I'm oversimplifying it. But basically, it comes down to what CBT is to me is basically you think better about something, then it's just going to be better. That's true for some people, but not for others. The fucking rent isn't going to get paid just because I feel better about it. Some people get really upset when I compare it to basically smoking weed all day. You're just avoiding the reality of what's really going on and fast forwarding through the day with these false negative feelings. Actually, I am saying that. I can't fucking change the situation at all. But those are two of my biggest cries. But there's a lot of other stuff that I saw that was problematic as I went. But I could rant, forever. So we'll leave it there and just see exactly where you want to go from there.
Well, I think what you're saying is what I've noticed about the capital S, capital W social work is that your essay, you just said it so well that what we're doing is telling people, forget the shithole you're living in and the cards life has dealt you, and let me help you. I used to go out on, I was a DCFS investigator, and I used to go out with this cop that used to say, he used to tease me and say, hey, when we walk up to the door, let's knock on the door and say, we're from the government, we're here to help.
Oh, God.
It's a great line because DCFS is the government. And yeah, there's some problems with it. So I see it, the words rang true to me that we're saying that we're helping people help themselves, but only if they help themselves in the way that we think is, that we've decided is helpful.
That's a tongue twister. Yeah, and I agree. I think one of the things that I quoted, and I don't know exactly who to attribute it to, but it's from Radical Social Work over in Britain, was what American social workers and what social workers worldwide are doing. But generally, there's a focus on America. Everybody's here coming here to learn our style, which again puzzles me. Like we do social work better than everybody else, perhaps we do. But this idea was that basically what social workers do is keep low income and middle income people just healthy enough to supply cheap labor to the capitalist class. We're not necessarily, and I say us, I'm including myself as a social worker. I look at myself as an informal social worker. I've been doing this well before the education, as most of us have. And I'm still kind of in the field, but we're not really healing anybody. Do we have the ability to heal anybody? I don't know that we do. Maybe, but maybe we do. But we don't seem to focus on that. We focus on just making everybody just okay enough to get through the day, just okay enough to sleep a little bit at night, making just enough money to pay just enough rent and just enough of an apartment, et cetera, et cetera. And it just seems like we're basically just agents of the state. Well, we most of us are, if we're going to be state licensed, and we technically are very literally agents of the state, but we're just basically reproducing the very thing that we should be trying to destroy.
You talked about the pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. Another one that is very popular right now in the teaching field is that the client is the expert on their life. Now, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've heard that in 1987 when I got my undergrad degree. We talked about the client being the expert in their own life, and we say it a lot more now, especially in the classroom. And I always wonder when it comes to being in the field, because when I was in the field, we said that, but we didn't act like that. We didn't really think the client was the expert. We thought we were the experts. And it was something that just gnawed at me a lot, especially when working with families in DCFS, because somebody comes to take your kids away. That's heavy. And then you tell them what they need to do to improve their lives to become what you think is a suitable parent. So you said you kind of consider yourself a social worker, but you're not sure. I know that. Explain your current job if you wouldn't mind, because
Okay,
I think
currently,
I'm a social work.
yeah. Currently, I work at the public defender's office. I'm what's called a mitigation specialist. But basically, what I do is I take police reports and court reports and do different assessments and start chase down medical records, mental health records, basically trying to make our clients and the people who are getting sentenced to prison, make the judge take a little bit more lenient. I'm not sure if you know what a victim impact statement is.
I do.
For those who don't, generally is after you had a court situation, whether it was a bench trial or a jury trial, the person, the defendant, the person that we work with, generally a lower income. That's why they have access to a public defender. And generally, some of what people like to think of as the worst of the worst, because we don't have money to put someone like me on every single case. So murders, sexual offenses, big time assaults, just the worst of the worst. So generally people that are looking at extended prison sentences. And we just trying to find determinants from their past, stuff that might have informed why they acted as they did. Again, generally, if you're going to rape somebody, there's not an excuse, but perhaps something happened to you as a child and that manifested again as an adult. That doesn't mean you're getting off scot-free, but that is a mitigating factor. Like, well, so-and-so, yes, he committed this horrible atrocity, but there is stuff in the past that was never correctly addressed. So now we have to look at this just a little bit lighter, if that makes
So
sense.
then do you advocate for them? Is that you give the judge this information and then do you advocate for the people for a lighter sentence?
Yes, I'm not the one who does it since I'm not an attorney. I don't speak in court. I prepare paperwork and prepare records for the actual attorney to give during right before the sentencing and closing statements and stuff. And I work directly with people as well. There's something called an allocution statement. That's what basically the defender says the last second, the last thing that is said to the judge before they're sentenced. Basically, the last second plea for mercy. Generally, at that point, you're not really pleading for mercy. We're well fucking beyond that. You're basically saying, hey, I messed up. I'm found guilty. I assume I'm about to go to prison. I'm just saying I got a family. This happened to me as a kid. I'm going to be foregoing this job, etc. So please, you can give me 20. How about you give me 5? It's not that direct, but that's kind of what we do.
That's so interesting. Do you have, I can feel myself that I might have conflict within myself, because some people, are they still automatically going to go away? Because you know the prison system, and I'm sure yeah, I just want to know how you feel about being a part of a system that is going to put people there.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we haven't talked about, some people listening might know, but I've been to prison. I've been out for 20 years, but I've served time instead of 3 state prisons of 4 county jails. It's been a long time and everything's all good now. So yes, I do have a deep-seated connection to try to keep people out of prison. I'm not 100% abolitionist where I'm like, oh, well, nobody deserves to go to prison, because there's some fucked up people that I've dealt with. So basically, to inform you, I'm going to give you 2 quick stories. All of this is public information. Some of the work I do, I can't talk about. These people have been sentenced. I'm not going to use their names because I don't even know them. But my first day at work, I had to sit in on a sentencing where basically someone had just been found guilty of murder. 2 of the people that I did know from before, basically this family, upon moving out of prison, I lived with them for a short time and I babysat this kid. Without getting too deep into it, I am going to trigger warning for intense violence, because that's what criminologists do. So the situation was, this man was upset with this woman because this woman was supposedly telling his girlfriend bad stuff about her. So he goes to her house. I didn't know the girl, but I knew her boyfriend. That was a kid I babysat. He stabbed the girl 4 or 5 times and turned and stabbed the guy a couple of times, turned back to the girl, stabbed her in her neck, then chased the guy down the street, slit his throat in a Ring camera. Again, there was a bunch of proof the person did this, though he never did admit. The proof seemed overwhelming. And then he went back to the house. The woman was still alive, slit her throat. She faked her death. He went away and made a call her his girlfriend about Taco Bell. All this was played during the closing arguments. And it was, the deep connection to myself, because I babysat this kid. I'm not going to pretend that this family was close to me. I was about in tears, not because I knew the kids so well, but because I had to see half the people in the courthouse about in tears. And this person got sentenced to 100 years. And it was weird because I'm sitting on the defense for this. I didn't participate yet because I wasn't there, but the situation, not much could be done. The gentleman refused to say that he had mental issues, refused to accept guilt. But then on the other side, there was a situation where there was a recent shooting of a 12-year-old kid. I got to sit in on the closing arguments of that. The attorney, who's my boss, the head public defender, was amazing. And in the 15-minute closing argument, we were like something straight off the television. And I was completely convinced that this person absolutely did not do this. She actually showed during her presentation who did do it. And it was fucking straight on a Perry Mason, like, okay. And less than 24 hours later, this guy got 40 years and was found guilty on all charges by 12 people. Again, a jury of his peers. It was 11 white folks and 1 Asian folk, and this was a black man, but hey, it's Champagne, so you know how it goes. So yes, there is tied to both. One was like, I hate seeing anyone go to prison, but hey, you killed somebody, an exceptionally heinous factor, fuck you. On the other side, like, wow, I don't believe this guy did this, but he's going away regardless. And if he didn't do it, now the person that did do it is still free to do it some more. So yeah, it's interesting dichotomy.
Do you see yourself doing it long term?
Well, I'm basically never going to be an attorney. So there's not really advancement. So even though they paid me rather well, it's not like this just keeps getting paid better and more freedom. I'll do it for 2 or 3 years, hopefully, until I finish up the PhD.
Yeah, I always hated when people ask me this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Where are you with your dissertation? Because I know you're done with coursework.
All but dissertation. I got to do my proposal, and they're really moving me pretty slow, but I'm in pretty good shape. I know what I'm doing. I'm ahead of most. It's just bad that I've had some of my friends have come and got their PhD like 2 years ago that came in my cohort, but I'm more of all my research is about social capital. And that's kind of what I'm building up through my time at school, is just meeting people and networking and meetings. So it's anyone who tells you college is about the credentials and the institutional capital. Well, that's what I write about. It's about the actual relational capital. Like there's many professors like you. Yeah. More relational capital than institutional capital by far, even though I only know you because of institutional capital. Okay, I'm spitting out a bunch of shit there, which you
No,
might
that's
not
very
understand, but it's my
no,
dissertation.
it's very interesting. I hear what you're saying, and it's true, is that just getting the degree really doesn't mean a lot. It does, but it does. I say that. I say it doesn't, but you and I both know it does, because having that PhD behind my name did open some doors that I wouldn't have had opened probably before. But it sure didn't lead to much pay increase. But I guess I know that I think I know your plan. Is your plan to work in the community and help people? Because that's social work
No,
too.
excuse me. But no, I do intend on teaching, but I don't have any interest in being a research professor. So I'll probably be at a community college. So a lot of people meet me with, well, why are you getting a PhD then? You don't really need it. Well, I do, to counterbalance everything else. My thing is also with social capital is all my jobs come from people I know. So I assume whatever college I go to will be that way, because I'm not prepared to go through some of the hoops that a lot of my friends who are formerly incarcerated people and now teach at bigger universities had to go through. They're willing to play those games. And I have no problem with people that are, but I'm not. So I'm probably going to be relegated to the lower income, lower fashion teaching. But I mean, I'm the person that'll always have a long waiting list for their class, regardless. And people that come to schools just to learn from me. So wherever. But yes, so I guess the TLDR, the too long didn't read of all that word sauce, was I do intend on teaching, but yeah, more community based. And it might be straight to the people. I mean, I would love to teach at Parkland. I teach there for a short time, and I have no interest in ever teaching there again. So perhaps community colleges are as bad as universities now in a different way. Hint, hint.
Any bureaucratic system just ends up fucking all the wrong people. If you jump through the hoops and play the game, then you can kind of get there. I loved the title of your essay go about school, where you said they let me in, but I wasn't. Was it what? Tell me the title again, Chris. I'm sorry, I forgot it. But
I
it was
remember
so
those. They
good.
let me in, but they didn't want me there. Something along those lines, or
That's
something
it.
close to
That's
that.
it. They let me in, but they didn't want me there. That was a powerful, powerful
Yeah, it was.
testimony. I'll call it a testimony, because it was. And it made me very sad. I did. It just made me sad, because is that what we do? We have people jump through hoops and come to school, and then
Because everybody loves lived experience until it doesn't agree with you. And when I talk about that, generally when I'm talking about, it's going to be prison incarceration stuff, but it's not just that. It's basically any mass marginalization. It don't matter if it's your gender or race or what it is, anything that people can use against you, because people generally want to hear about stuff. People want to hear about what's going on with Black folks in the Black community. So too often we send a bunch of white and international students to a Black community with a bunch of clipboards asking a traditionally marginalized population that's been fucked over all their lives, regardless. Stupid questions we generally know the answer to. What's the problem? Money. Why is it so violent? Money. Why this? Money. We need money. Well, hey, let's have a community center. Money. How about we spend $150,000 on something else? Not to say the community centers are bad, because they actually are good, and they're what you get when you don't have the proper amount of money to address the actual root cause of everything. But
and
basically,
for some people, community centers are good. Some people aren't going to go there. I've had
exactly.
students in class write papers about, well, what the way we could help, because loneliness is a part for senior citizens, is a part of their daily life. And I have students all the time say, well, if we had, we have senior centers for senior citizens, and I go there. I'm not that fucking old. I'm not going to go to a place like that. And I'm telling you, Chris, the truth, I can't think of a social problem that isn't tied somehow to poverty. Because you just
No,
said
they
money,
basically all
money,
too. A
money.
lot of people think it's planned by some evil Illuminati. Well, I don't think it was necessarily planned that way, but it was very convenient how everything worked out. How it would just keep us just desperate enough, fighting amongst ourselves for the scrap while they rule everything. And we're seeing how bad it is now. I mean, it was always this bad, but now it's just more out in the open. how they don't really seem to care about poor people at all. As like, if we're not willing to work for them.
I've been teaching for 20 years, and I've always said that poor people, even to social workers, poor people really don't have a face or a name. When we see homeless people on the street, not very often do we go over and try to actually help. I don't anyway. I'm guilty of that. I'm not
Because
sure
each of
why.
us can only do so much. It's like they always push with pollution. Like, well, we should, sort out all of our stuff, but each factory is doing a gazillion times what I'm doing myself. What little can I do to help? But with the social, it's not quite so bad because, yeah, you can perhaps help one or two people. Yes, when it comes to pollution, you're not going to cause, you're not going to put a chink in it. But putting a tiny chink in the social aspect, just a couple of people actually can help. But understand the fact that some people just think they don't have just don't have the abilities. And I'm that way because I'm a pessimist. That is the glass half full or half empty. Well, what's in the glass? Is it piss? I mean, I'm extra negative, but I don't, and I think I've talked about this some. I don't like teaching or talking about it so much when I'm talking to younger students because I don't want them to grow up pessimistic as myself. Because if they grow up as unbelieving, as unfaithful as I am, well, then they're not going to fucking change anything. Yes, I'm pessimistic, but I don't want to teach that or pass it on to anyone else. So it's a really weird situation to live in.
So many times in class, we'll get to talking about the current situation because I teach social work policy, I teach program evaluation. So I teach things where it's master's level and students are trying to fix shit. And it always comes out, you're really not. And I struggle with the same thing you're talking about. I wanted to do this podcast. I don't think there are enough honest voices in our field that are saying, I don't think that emperor's got many clothes on, you guys. I'm sorry. You're saying all golden braided and all that shit, but I'm saying naked. And I just want that to be called out. So I
Social
haven't
works even worse
informed.
with that stuff because it demands conformity through licensure. And I mean, I couldn't say half the things I was saying if I was licensed, but once somebody started hearing, we can't have that. We're the NASW. He can't do that. He can't be complaining about mandated reporting, which is
And
again one of the
NSW
things that I
see it
hate. But I think with the NASW and the other whatever the organization is whoever does
Council on Social Work
whoever
Education.
does the actual licensing. I
NSW.
did consider getting licensed
Oh, Illinois
because
professional regulation.
no, it was the licensing.
Anymore.
They're doing Pritzker early 2020, 2021. They did the thing where they were no longer requiring the test, which my thing is a complete scam. If I just got a master's degree and you're saying that I may not be able to pass the test, we need to talk about the school that is doing the certification here because I shouldn't have to take a test after graduating from an MSW program. But anyway,
it was a test.
yeah, but I was happy to have to take the test, but I got to the end of the report and asked me about my background, which I could have went and looked everything up. And I'm like, dude, I don't need this bullshit. Plus, I don't want to play the game. It'd be something extra for my signature on my emails, I guess. But I get better to open stuff up because people are like, weren't you licensed? Like, why are you licensed? Other than the fact that you need to get a job where you need the licensure, which makes it like by definition a racket, but whatever.
And again, we pretend that the emperor has on this beautiful coat, and that license is a magic tool that says, oh, she knows what she's doing. I've seen people with lots of degrees and licenses that don't know what they're doing. And I've seen people that had a GED that could work with people, work circles around other social workers. So I don't buy into that either. But I find myself throughout my life doing what I was told to do so that I could get in. Do you just shun that completely, or do you find yourself doing it?
Yeah, I've lived a rough life, which has put me into this weird position where I can tell people to fuck off that a lot of people can't. I think it's because I'm getting older. I don't really have a whole hell of a lot, so I don't have a hell of a lot to lose, and I'm willing to go to the bottom again. I mean, aside from prison, other than homeless shelters, all that, I don't ever want to go back to that. But because of how I've lived, it constantly hovers over me. So I know it's always realistic. And that really helps because I do have to tell people, a lot of people coming out of prison, it's weird. They'll come to me at 25-year-old, like, you just want to do what you do. You like talk all over them. Like, but you have a lot more life ahead of you than me. You can't take the stupid, crazy risks I can. You might want to just shut up about your past and go get you a business degree or go be a scientist or something. And hey, just kick a little money back to people like me from time to time. But hey, I'm in a much different situation. So yeah, that does let me get away with stuff. For instance, the job I'm currently at now, oddly enough, there was no background check, no drug check, none of that stuff at all. I mean, they're the public defender's office, and the woman who hired me was on LinkedIn reading my stuff for a year. She knew exactly who she was getting. So I didn't, it wasn't like I was hiding anything. And it was mentioned like, hey, I'm going to use my background as leverage to build rapport. And she was like, oh, I expect nothing less. So it is every once in a while when I hit the attorneys who don't know with, oh, yeah, I was in prison like 20 years ago. Like, oh, shit, what the, oh, that's crazy. Like, are you supposed to be here?
Do you feel like sometimes I'm projecting onto you my own feelings? Because I feel like the reason I connected with you is because we're kindred spirits somehow. Even though I had a whole different life trajectory than you, I feel like we're kindred spirits. Do you ever feel like you're proving something to yourself, or are you trying to prove it to other people?
I'm proving stuff to both myself and to other people. I guess this leads me to something that I've wrote about as well. There's a lot of people look at my journey or my story as some grand redemption arc. And it's really not. It's more of a revenge story. I mean, yes, I like to think that I'm fueled by love, but I'm fueled by hate and darkness and anger. It just, unfortunately, I'm not seeking revenge on any particular person. It's more the systems that hurt me. I want to hurt them systems back. I want to retaliate. I guess it is somewhat altruistic because even though I want to do it, I want to do it so other people don't have to deal with what I dealt with. Not that I'm the hardest person alive. There's plenty of people who've dealt with the shit I've dealt with that ain't here no more. Don't get me wrong, it goes the exact opposite fucking way, where there's people who have dealt with way worse shit than I've ever dealt with, who are doing much better than me. But it is just it's just about I want to destroy the systems that hurt me so they don't hurt anybody else. But it's frustrating because I don't feel as if I'm really getting anywhere. I used to go to a bunch of protests and do a lot more active stuff. And while I felt it was productive internally for myself, it's such shitty times that the world's falling apart. I don't feel it was doing much to actually resist anything. It was more of a, hey, shit's fucked up. Let's hang out together for a while. That aspect was positive. So I don't make fun of anyone still actively out resisting, but it kind of plays back to the pessimistic shit. It is like the more we do, the worse it gets. We're definitely a society devolving instead of evolving right now.
I
Wow.
grew up at the time of the hippies, and I always wanted to go to a protest, but I never did go to a protest until the No Kings Day, and I happened to be in New Mexico at my son's house, and I went with my daughter-in-law to a protest. It was a blast, just exactly what you said, just a bunch of like-minded people kind of hanging out with signs saying peace, love, and I just fell right in and I loved it. So I like that positive side. But like you, I can when I look at the world, I can get dark if I don't really watch myself. It's tough. When you're with students, you said, I don't want them to have my pessimistic attitude. So what's your process for being, I don't know, what are you, more upbeat? What do you do in the classroom because I know you're a realist in the classroom.
I would say I'm more upbeat because I've cried in class just once this semester. I do talk to my students a lot about mental health, and I don't think so many instructors are doing it. When I first started teaching, actually, when I first started being a student, I despised professors that thought they were supposed to do anything but teach me that particular class. I didn't fucking come to you for life skills. That's because I was a 40-year-old college student. I wasn't 20, and these students need some help from time to time, especially with letting them know how you can and cannot use ChatGPT. I don't know if you've dealt with that yet. It's coming if you haven't. But no, I do check-ins with them, and I talk to them a lot because it's a 400 level class in criminology I'm currently teaching. I've taught a lot of 101, but with 400, a lot of my students are in their last semester of college, and I talk to them about some of the stories from work. Like, are you about to be in criminology? Are you ready to walk into a courtroom and hear people talk about some kid you grew up with getting his throat slit and just be able to say, that's crime. It is what it is. Can you deal with that? Because a lot of people can't. Because this is kind of out of order, but something I wanted to mention when it came to social work students, and you talked about how some people with social degree licensure probably shouldn't be practicing. I was leadership and social change. So at U of I was a macro social worker. So this isn't a shot on any of my fellow macro social workers because we weren't one-on-one counseling types. But I had a lot of overlap with those. And I was talking to a friend who was clinical, and I was like, there might be 2 or 3 people in that entire cohort that would be capable of handling somebody like me in a counseling session. I don't mean like I'm some great person. I mean, they couldn't handle me just coming in, looking at them and just crying for an hour, like ugly crying, like, what the fuck is going on? This guy, CBT. Hey, Chris, just think better. Just think more positive. I want to meet you where you're at. Yeah, you're not meeting me where I'm at, I assure you. But that comes back to the students as, flashback from the social work students I was just talking about, the criminology students. They have to be a little bit tougher. I don't give those trigger warnings. I'm like, dude, you're about to graduate in the world of crime. Shit's about fucked up. Kids getting raped. Then again, that's no longer trigger worthy. Now the fucking president's doing the thing and nobody seems to care. But just what you had to be prepared for. So basically, with criminology, 10% of what I'm lecturing on is solid empirical fact. The other is 90% theory and interpretation of those facts. And I like to be very honest with my students where I'm biased. I'm biased as fuck. I'm not so much anti-cop, but I'm anti-authority. I'm anti-punitive. I'm anti-prison. So keep that in mind when listening to me, and don't be afraid to ask, Mr. Meyer, was that just your opinion there? And I'll be like, oh yeah, it was just my opinion. So that's a very important thing as well with students, is talk to them about stuff outside of class if they're willing to go there. Don't push for anything. Talk about the mental health, tell them to drink water, tell them to get outside and have fun with their pets. And be very honest that what you're teaching them, you're not the expert. I am the expert on myself and nothing else. All of us experience 3 realities about to get psychoanalyzed. My reality is mine. Your reality is yours. Right now, I'm sitting in my house looking at Zoom. Right now, you're sitting in your house looking at Zoom. Then there's our shared reality, the real reality, where both of us are both looking at a screen. My interpretation of mine is real. Your interpretation of yours is real. But the reality that we're both here, there's no interpretations. It just is real. Yeah. Okay. So I'll stop there because I can go on forever, but I got into my pedagogy and I never use that fucking word, my teaching style.
I like the word pedagogy, and I use it anytime I can.
Well, I just did, so I can't hate.
What's my other word? I sent an announcement to my students the other day, and I said, read this. There's a plethora of information in there. And I said, plethora is a word I learned when writing my dissertation. I don't get to use it very often, so I'm going to say there's a plethora of information in this.
Instead of plethora, substitute plethora with veritable cornucopia. There is a veritable cornucopia of knowledge available.
Ooh, I like cornucopia. Another word I like, I almost called this podcast cacophony of care. Because
yeah, 3 times. Cacophony of care. Yeah.
What?
I said say that 3 times really fast. Cacophony. Yeah.
No, I left it behind because I think it was kind of a show off thing, because I heard it someplace that cacophony, a symphony is a lot of sounds coming together in harmony. A cacophony is sounds coming together in chaos. So I wanted this podcast to be voices in chaos, looking past all that smooth shit and getting straight to the real deal, which is chaos. But if nobody gets it, then yeah. And I landed on office hours just simply because this is what I have done for 20 years now with students, now in Zoom, but I used to have office hours in the, at the university. And I loved when students would stop by. I really like people who are learning, ergo students, and I just like hanging around with them. I don't want to ever get too old to do that, Chris, because I love it. And when they won't let me teach at school, I'll just do some shit like this and drag all you back in here.
Oh, no, I understand. It's great. It's great. Unfortunately, no one ever comes to my office hours, but
not very many did mine either. But
yeah, the way I talk, I generally melt because it'll happen at the end of the semester. I'll get those inevitable warm and fuzzy emails like, you didn't say a word all semester. I didn't know you even knew who I fucking was. Okay, cool. Okay, nice.
Did they call you Chris or Mr. Minor for the most part?
Usually none. Well, it's Professor Minor when they email, because a lot of times it's Dr. Minor. I'm like, wait, we're in this elitist fucking organization where
Can't
if you
say
call
that
me
word
doctor,
yet.
I'm not Dr. Minor yet. Yeah, one time, I think I mentioned this article I sent. Well, I just got in the PhD program, so I'm a PhD candidate, right? No, I'm a PhD student. I just figured I was a candidate. I'm in the PhD program. I'm a candidate, aren't I? So a fucking professor had the nerve. Well, I guess he wasn't rude, but was like, yeah, I see on your signature it says PhD candidate. You are not a PhD candidate, or you would not be in this class. Hopefully you're a PhD student. Are you a PhD student? I'm like, you motherfucker.
Oh.
So I mean, I guess, yeah, I guess I'm glad he corrected me as opposed to somebody else. But like, dude, really?
Something
Just
so similar happened to me, Chris. I got
oh,
introduced I just had got accepted into the doctoral program, and I got introduced at a DCFS, I don't know, some kind of a webinar, seminar of some kind. And the administrator of that office said, and I'd like to introduce our very own Linda Kingery, a PhD candidate. And it happens, just so happened there was a U of I professor there, dear friend of mine. And she didn't say anything then, thank goodness.
oh,
But she did, just like with you, she did tell me later, she said, you actually can't call yourself a PhD candidate until you actually have finished the coursework. Oh, wow.
gosh.
But I got to tell you, I can't wait to call you Dr. Minor because I dig the shit out of thinking I'm a doctor. I've got a grandson who says his dog got sick. And he said, Nina, can't you help? You're a doctor.
That's like those people that didn't grasp Dr. Biden's wife. Like, she's not a medical doctor. Like, you just said what you needed to say. She's not a medical doctor.
But some people really seem to struggle with that because it's not their everyday language.
And I won't lie, until I was at U of I didn't know what a doctorate or a PhD even was. I just knew it was something that some people went to school for a very long time. I'm not sure if I still know what it is, but
Very long
I'm
time.
going to have one, but I still not know exactly what it is.
What's Zen criminology?
Yeah,
So
criminology.
it's a doctor of the philosophy of criminology.
Yes. So
So
like
whatever,
extra
I'm
word.
a doctor of the philosophy of educational psychology. I'm not a doctor of educational psychology. It's just, what is it? What's the deal? Why do we do that? Why do we do that stuff?
Like I said, it's all about symbolics. It's all, this country is all about the Bible and the Constitution, but it's not just those two things. It's other things that we symbolically interact with and give disproportionate, irreverent power to. But hey, I got a DCFS story for you since you've mentioned it a few
Good.
times. So you
Good.
probably figured this, you probably heard about this on Facebook. But hey, so before I took this job at the public defender's office, there was I'm not going to get into names. It doesn't matter. Things didn't work out well, but I don't hate them. They're doing what they must do. There was a homeless shelter. It's going to pay very little for me, but it was an overnight once a week for a friend. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So it took forever. It's just opening up. I believe it's fully functional. But finally, after 3 months, like, okay, we're set to go. We just need you to do a background check through DCFS. Like, okay, well, I've done one through Parkland, a fingerprint for working with kids. I don't have that much of an issue. But anyway, I went ahead and applied, and they did the fingerprint thing, and DCFS reached out, said, hey, you came up with a hit. Well, of course, because I have a felony conviction from 20 years ago. If you could just please explain this to us, why this happened, what happened, and why it won't happen again. Not exactly the exact terms, but something of that like. And my thing is, well, this was stealing money from an employee because I was a drug addict 20 years ago. No, I don't really want to explain this. So my retort was basically like, okay, well, I wrote 2 sentences. I stole a bunch of money 20 years ago and sniffed it up my nose. Then I wrote two paragraphs about what I had done since then. And then I finished it off rather rude. We're like, I can't believe that a trauma-informed organization is asking me to relive the worst moments of my life, especially when they attached my criminal history to the email asking me to explain it. They had my entire criminal history there. They did not need to ask me anything. So I went ahead and sent it back to him, made a post on Facebook. I can't believe DCFS. I was like, yeah, fuck DCFS. Because, fuck DCFS.
Yeah.
Anyway, 48 hours later, I get the message from the homeless shelter like, hey, you passed your DCFS background, but we didn't much appreciate your social media post about our process. We didn't think it fit into our morals and ethics. Do you think you're going to get a good response from sending me an email like that? My response was, I've taught ethics and morals. I don't think you have. Where exactly did I go overboard? Didn't mention your org, didn't mention any people, just mentioned DCFS. I'm pretty sure you're just trying to hide behind professionalism. You should have figured, you knew who I was getting into this. I don't do that shit. So yeah, I don't want your job. Turn it sideways, shine it up, shove it up your ass. I was a little more polite than that, but not much because I was a little upset. Plus, I had the other job on retainer, basically. But the fact was this: not only did I have to expose myself once to DCFS, another organization that should have been trauma informed came after me, should have known. First of all, I don't think I crossed a line. Second of all, I was hired for this job through social capital, through people who know exactly how I was going to handle that situation. And then they swooped in afterwards, taking a pot shot at me. It should have been as simple as, hey, can we keep things moving forward on the DL maybe? Which wouldn't have been an issue. Like, oh, I wasn't going after y'all. Okay, I could take that down if I need to. I didn't take it down, by the way. But we didn't come to that. It was just attack me. Like, so it was like, whatever. So yeah, oddly enough, DCFS, it was weird they had me go through that, but I assume it was just going through the motions because that's the problem with social work and all this other stuff is the fact when they think one size fits all. You need to be able to look at it. Well, this dude did some shit 20 years ago, didn't touch no kids, didn't beat up no woman or beat up anyone. I guess I shouldn't say just women, but there was no violence.
Yeah, I think that the stories we look over people's stories, don't we? Because of that front we put up of you say, I've got a PhD behind my name, so now I'm Dr. Kingery and I go teach at the University of Illinois. And I'm not gonna lie, I take great pride in saying I teach for the University of Illinois. But am I still the same Linda Kingery that cusses like a sailor and has all kinds of insecurities? And sure I am. How do we balance that?
I don't, in case you can't tell. But that's why I'm so open on social media because I do. It's weird saying that I inspire people, but I do, and I hear that a lot. Plus, it's kind of with a lot of the mental health issues I have, is people generally meet me on social media first, so kind of know what to expect when they meet me in person. You didn't have that honor. You just got fucking subject to me. But I was an outsider, a stranger in a strange land, so I wasn't in full performance mode when you met me. But I like not having so much of a separation. I don't talk about family on social media. There's problems there. I'm not talking about it. I don't want to offend my mother or father on social media by talking about how fucked up that is. I don't talk about generally about romantic relationships for obvious reasons because I'm so public on social media that if I start posting a picture like, oh, you're with them or you're wait, I thought it's a situation where the romantic thing where many people have thought I was gay. I have no problem with gay folks. I assure you, I like women, but I wasn't pictured with many very often because things generally go bad. So why make that social or why bring that in there? So even though I'm very upfront about most of my mental health issues and my past with incarceration, and I'm increasingly becoming open with my money issues, well, especially now that they're getting better. But over the summer, I had to come online. There was an issue where I no longer get my student loans for school. So I was living rather well above my means off credit card for years. So January of last year, not 2026, but January 2025. Again, I'm very open about this because someone else might be dealing with it.
Exactly.
I decided to quit paying my credit cards. Period. And it was a weird situation where I'm going to talk about my parents here because I went to my dad like, I'm fucked. It's not even worth making them payments anymore. I'm 60,000 in the hole. He's like, oh, well, hey, you grew up poor like me and you got money. So you fucking spend it. You'll just claim bankruptcy in a year and start over. I'm like, oh, okay. But it was like, okay, we can bond over not managing money very fucking well. And plus I've been poor my whole life. The 5 or 6 years in Chicago, I lived above my means and I don't really regret anything. I'd never flown on a plane before I was 40. Over the 45 years that I shot my credit, went to California 3 times, Vegas, Dallas. I'm still doing the student stuff, which pays 50% of a full-time professor and working full-time for the county. So I'm making a lot of money, but I'm not going to be teaching after this semester. because our department is falling apart. The class that I teach completely myself now for 25 students, criminology, law and justice 492, alternatives to incarceration. I was the TA for 3 semesters ago with a full professor teaching it with a full TA. Now I have no TA and I'm teaching it for basically half what a professor would get. My first thought was, so who's the professor getting fucked out and not teaching this? But then again, I guess for certain, sometimes it is just fucking, you got to do what you got to do. It's not like if I wouldn't have taken it, somebody else wouldn't have taken it. But yeah, it is.
Sometimes they can do a sabbatical too. There's
Yeah,
ways
so it
that
may
they
they
can.
might have just been short. We took 0 students this year in our master's or PhD cohorts at criminology,
Oh,
which
really?
because my thing is this, I think a lot of master programs don't need to exist, including criminology and including social work. I think it should be a bachelor's or a PhD. I think a bachelor's in social work, if you're going to be a capable social worker, you're there. Continuing education, you should, you're still going to be taking in some inputs, but if you have the skills to develop into a future good social work, I think those have already been found. And I'm just winging this off the top of my head. It's not like there's some great plan I've thought of, like, hey, social workers don't need well, I guess the deprofessionalization of social work will help with that. So just a little less money.
Help and hurt. It's going to hurt our field. It's going to hurt my job. Why would you teach something that's not a profession? It'll be more like a trade school, which I'm not so sure that's bad.
I just think that to really get to, I don't think the 1 year plus an internship is enough. So maybe something between a master's and a PhD. I just don't think that one and done is sufficient. It wasn't for me, especially coming from outside of social work. So I just had to take you the first over the summer, and I don't remember what the other class was. So basically 2 introduction classes, which were basically the better of the classes I had through social work. There were some bad classes.
The thing about classes is that you're gathering, you know this, you don't remember everything. You go through a class, you get all this information fed at you, you remember what's important to you. And so the classes are just a way to get that information. But to me, the real magic happens when you're actually doing the job. I mean, that's on the job training is what I think it's best for every occupation, really.
And on the job training, that's something I've taken a lot of heat about, is the unpaid internships. But they have to find somebody to address that, because that is just such a privileged angle. Those who can afford to do that, those who can afford to leave the country to do a free, I mean, I'm not hating if your family earned that money, but yeah, the unpaid internships are really problematic, especially for social work, such a barrier to entry. And I was very lucky to fortunately, despite what the department wanted, to get paid some, because mine, I think I mentioned, got through AmeriCorps. So it was only like $800 a month, but $800 a month compared to nothing, well, that's a lot of money.
For real. But the thing is, there's just, it isn't a field where there's a lot of money out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer to this is. So I can't tell you how many social work classes I teach that my last line is, I don't know. One thing I know is that I don't know. And I think that is the absolute best place to be. The reason that I enjoy talking to students so much is because I know I don't know. And I like learning from other people. I don't feel like the sage on the stage at all. Sometimes I'm not even sure I'm the guide on the side. I mean, sometimes in class, I feel like raising my hand.
Have you ever had a student change your mind in the middle of a class?
Oh, hell yes.
Okay.
More than once.
I have too. I was just surprised. Okay, because mine was a great one. This was actually, it was not fresh. It was a few years ago. I was guest lecturing at U of I, actually, here in Champaign, and I was talking about police. And I made a statement. Well, as soon as I make it, you might be like, oh, well, that was questionable. But it's just how I talk. So I was like, well, hey, we're not really going to talk about the good the police do, because police are just supposed to fucking do good, okay? So you don't get a fucking cookie for that.
Uh-huh.
So someone was like,
protect and serve.
Yeah, but somebody checked me on it, was like, well, that's not really a good way to look at it, because if we just look at just the negative, then we have what we have now, where everybody thinks every cop is just shooting every black guy in the back. And it was like, okay, I'm part of the problem. Fine, you busted me. Okay, I retract that. Everyone was laughing, but it was serious. it was
But
time.
it's
I mean, yes,
it's
I could have put up a fight there. I could have been like, well, but you got to let them win from time to time because that gets better engagement. You let your students feel they're doing something. And it was like, I probably didn't word that the best. And that ended up being I made some good decisions that day. I showed the Oberheim video. Are you familiar with that? The Monticello police officer?
no.
Monticello police officer who was actually shot and killed in the line of duty, I believe about 4 or 5 years ago. And the body cam came out. He approached the vehicle without his gun drawn. And it was just after all the George Floyd stuff. So I think he was being extra careful because it was a domestic battery call late at night. The guy was half in his car, half out. And the police officer approached. And yeah, it wasn't much wrestling, and they just heard gunshots, and the police officer died. And I believe the officer whose video cam also got shot. Here I was showing a video where, hey, police did everything by the fucking book and shit still went to hell. And Oberheim's neighbor was one of the students. I was like, oh, she's like, yeah, I'm his neighbor. Like, oh, I didn't say anything offensive. Oh no, you were just fine.
Interviewing my old cop friend Friday morning, and I'm toying with the idea of getting you two in the same room.
Oh, I'm good because I work with cops plenty now. Because there was a time where I'm still more radical now, but less radical in a way. I'm not all cops are bad by any means. After being in Chicago, yeah, I think Chicago helped me because finding out now, Champaign is just a microcosm of Chicago. It's not quite as corrupt, but up there, my take was always there's no good cops because good cops would take care of the bad cops. But after studying criminology in Chicago, oh, no, the good cops will either get framed or killed or fired or intimidated or their life will become hell. Like, wow. Yeah, they do what they can. There are plenty of good cops doing what they can, but there's such a bad apparatus. Now, Champaign, I don't think it's quite as serious. We've had a number, the Kiwan issue, the issue I just talked about. We've had, there was a cop, Matt Schwab. Basically, the guy was out at all the bars flashing his guns at women, threatening to sexually harass them or sexually assault them. I don't believe he ever actually did, but because of the police union, they couldn't fire him forever. And when they did finally fire him, they had to pay him a $250,000 severance package. Even though the cops didn't want him here. Nobody wanted him because of the union. So just my take on cops is I'm not anti-cop like I used to be, because being a felon, if I ever have a problem where I need a gun, yeah, I can make a call and get a gun. I ain't about that. I'm calling the fucking cops. Okay, so yeah.
I just think no matter what field you're in, no matter what you're doing, there's shitty people and there's good people, and even good people can be shitty sometimes.
And even shitty
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. Good point. That goes both ways. So here we are. We're closing in on an hour, and I'm trying to hold these to an hour. I want to know if you knew that somehow miraculously the whole world was going to listen to this. This is what I want the world to know about life, about whatever you want to say.
I'm trying to say something deeper than something just funny like pet more
Oh,
cats.
no, I mean it, because I'm not sure. Sometimes I think I might say, fuck you.
Yeah, actually, we're going to go the other way, despite the
Okay.
fact that I'm generally fueled by anger and darkness and hate, and that is true. We need to stop talking to people like they're fucking stupid, even if they're stupid. The biggest problem with this whole MAGA shit, well, the biggest problem is they're fucking Nazis. But the reason they're Nazis, we've pushed them away, we've bullied them and outcasted them. Nobody's framing it like that. So that's what they think they're doing to us. They think they're bullying us and outcasting us because they don't know how to deal with their emotions. Do we know how to fucking deal with our emotions? I'm not sure that we do, because we're not doing much better. But all this shit is falling apart because we don't talk to each other as if we're humans anymore. The internet has led us to know each other way better than we probably should have. The internet has also made everybody think they're a fucking expert. Just my luck that right when I decided to go back to school to get a degree in political science, everybody decides that they're an expert in fucking politics overnight. Fucking Trump brought that to us. It ruined my fucking degree. But yeah, so I threw a bunch of word sauce to basically just say, just be nicer. Even if you don't
Oh,
like somebody, put up with them. Let people get away with saying dumb shit from time to time. Somebody says the earth is flat. Do they have the fucking power to fuck my life up? No. Whatever, dude. The world ain't flat. I don't need to berate them. I don't need to Google the video to prove it to them. Just fucking whatever. Now, I'm not going to rant much longer, but if that person's a fucking NASA scientist who says the world's flat, then we need to put a fucking stop to the shit. But if it's Kyrie Irving, a basketball player, whatever, dude, the world ain't flat, but go on and believe that. People believe they ain't ever been to the moon. I believe that. If they're not somebody who has the power of decision making, if they're not the president, if they're not in NASA, if they're not in the military, whatever, let them believe it. You don't gotta, not every single moment is a teachable moment. That's some elitist bullshit. And that's what I think the opposition, all the MAGA folks think of us. They think that we're elitist, that we think we're better than them. And a lot of us do. Sometimes I think I'm better than them because I'm calling them fucking Nazis. I am better than a Nazi, but they're all just fucking humans. And maybe if we were nicer, they wouldn't be so fucking stupid.
just trying to get through this life. But I got to tell you, one thing that I can't, I love that. Be kind. If I have a meme that says, of all the things you can be in the world, be kind. It's not that hard. However, when someone tells me that what I saw is not what I saw, I lose my shit, Chris. I can't take it. I just can't. I know a person who, if they see something like the killings in Minnesota, it's fake media, it's not real. I can't. I just can't say, well, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm like, no, you're not.
Well, that
So
comes to
there
the
is
do
a
as
point.
I say, not as I do. Because I
Yeah.
preach better than I am. I'm not capable of that myself. I snap out.
There is a point where I think we're living in a time when what you're saying is so true, though, that kindness is so needed. But I'm not sure how you can do that with blatantly. You can still be
I can
kind.
teach you. I do it quite often.
You can
I
still
just
be
try
kind.
not to actually discuss it at all. Because I do.
Right.
You probably
That's
see
the
my
way
thing
I
on ICE. Hey, I'm making one post this month on it. Fuck you. If you support ICE, I hope your kids are next. And when you say something like that, it generally gets them mad. They're like, why are you mad about me saying that? If ICE didn't do anything wrong, your friends have nothing to be, your kids have nothing to be concerned about. Well, you're bringing my kids into this. Well, hey, those are somebody's kids. Oh, it's personalized now. So it is like, whatever. But yeah, it's hard. It's the whole 1984 reread, the whole double think, and just see something and believe something else, and that's
rough.
it's bad. Not even so much as how it's going to make us lazy and eventually kill us, because that's how the Terminator story works. But the fact that it's the fight over who gets to program it. It's being programmed by Elon Musk and conservatives. So even if they weren't programming a racist algorithm, it's going to happen regardless, because it's simulating the current world. That's what's informing it. So it's going to be formed as racist, but then you also have him informing it. So it's going to be even worse for a bunch of other things. So it's never going to be reality, but it's going to be trusted as it is. So yeah, we won't open that.
I can't wait to read your essay on that, because I have a different opinion of AI. And I know it's because I'm not well informed. I use it. I love it. I've named my AI assistant.
Oh, I
She helps me
use
with
it
so
way
many.
too much. I'm just concerned about where it's going.
I said it was horrible. I didn't say I didn't use it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I use it a
That's
lot.
good. That's good, Chris.
Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Let's have another conversation soon. It was fun.
Awesome. Any follow-ups, whatever, just hit me up. Cool.
Yeah.
All right,
Cool.
I'm getting off. Smoke time. Later.
Peace.
Peace.